Now to another topic, Steve. Despite voting yes in the Voice referendum, a former Labor Chief Minister of the ACT reports that the territory's Indigenous population are ironically among the most disadvantaged in Australia. And this is even though the territory has had its own voice for about 15 years now. What do you think about how the most progressive state in Australia, the only one that voted yes in the referendum, is treating its own population, Indigenous population?
Well, it's dreadful. I mean, the ACT is led by the worst administration in the country, a green left combination of lunatics who have done so much damage to Canberra that it's not even funny. I mean, this is the administration now, of course, that allows you to wander around with 15 deals of ice in your pocket, have legalised basically the use of drugs. How can a community that is as wealthy as the ACT community, where, you know, the vast majority of people are either employed by the state territory government or by the federal government, how can they let disadvantaged Indigenous Australians who live within their borders be some of the most disadvantaged and locked up people in the country? The Indigenous community of the ACT should be the most well-off Indigenous Australians anywhere in the nation. We're not talking about a remote community 1,500 kilometres out in the middle of the desert. We're talking about people in a small area called Canberra, where everybody, you know, is buying up houses and lives off the government purse. That's absolutely appalling that that's allowed to happen.
Yeah. Now, Steve, another big story today. Look, we know Anthony Albanese's a couple of days away from flying to China, the first visit by an Australian PM in about 7 years. But we hear today that the newly formed Cyber and Infrastructure Security Centre is warning that digital landmines might already be in government systems. There could be more cyber attacks coming. This clearly is coming from either China or Russia.
Well, clearly from China, and you know we banned Huawei from being involved in the NBN, as we know, and there's been a lot of good work done, particularly by the opposition in Canberra in regard to security cameras. I know you've done interviews on this, on the idea that security cameras that are being were installed in defence facilities around Australia were imported from China. And so Chinese technology is embedded in so much of what we rely on to go about our normal day-to-day business. But, I mean, I'd like to ask you, Sharri, what chance do you think the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, of raising this with Xi Jinping when he gets to China at the weekend? Is he going to say, mate, how come you're sending all this stuff over to my country that you can then turn off, you know, at a whim? I mean, we saw a story earlier this week suggesting that many of the solar panels that we see on the roofs of Australian homes, they have a connector that is also imported from China, which can be turned off because it has a computer chip in it. I guarantee you it's not going to be raised by the PM.
Look, we hear the mantra from them, agree where we can, disagree where we must, or some version of that. But you don't see much disagreeing happening, that's for sure. Steve Price, thank you very much for your time.